Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from Commander Dr. Bhushan Diwan at Mumbai, 1971 Indo-Pak war veteran. I'm happy to interact with you through this virtual conference on the topic of strategic importance of Indian Ocean region and security challenges in the IOR, that is Indian Ocean region. The about Indian Ocean first. Indian Ocean is the third largest of the world's oceanic divisions, covering 70 million square kilometers or nearly 20% of the water on Earth's surface. It is bounded by Asia to the north, Africa to the east, and Africa to the west, and Australia to the east. To the south, it is bounded by the Southern Ocean or Antarctica. Along its core, the Indian Ocean has some large marginal or regional seas such as the Arabian Sea, the Laccadive Sea, the Somali Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea. Its maximum length of the Indian Ocean is 9,600 kilometers from Antarctica to Bay of Bengal, and its maximum width is 7,600 kilometers from Africa to Australia. Its surface is, as I mentioned already, 70 million square kilometers, and its average depth is 3,740 meters, and maximum depth is 7,260 meters, that is at Java. The shore length is 66,000 kilometers. So this is briefly about the geography of the Indian Ocean. Now let us see what exactly do we mean by security challenges of the Indian Ocean. What is meant by the word maritime security, and what challenges does it involve? Basically, maritime security deals with not only the physical defense perspective, but also the maritime sea lines of communication for free, unhindered trade on the sea routes. Also, prevention of disaster which may happen in the Indian Ocean region. Also, the ecology, the environment. So this is a concept, maritime security takes care of the territorial threat to the countries bordering the Indian Ocean, as well as the unhindered free flow of trade and people over the sea surface. But let me quickly tell you, when we talk of sea, we just think it is a surface, sea surface. No. We may think it's sea coast. No. There is, besides MDA, marine domain awareness, there is a very important concept of UDA, underwater domain awareness. With emerging blue economy, lot of resources, even a lot of food, even a lot of residential places, and a lot of minerals may come from below surface. From the seabed also, oil may come, minerals may come. So this is all called blue economy. So to this aspect, to this extent, the UNO has decided, a UNO Convention of Law of Seas, UNCLOS, UNCLOS. It's an international treaty which has been signed by many countries, and including China and India, though US has not signed it. It defines the concept of what are territorial waters, what is territorial waters, what is exclusive economic zone. So these are also important aspects because these decide that for me in India or for you in, let's say, Nigeria, how much is your defense burden in the sense of territorial waters and what are your rights, and international waters is different, territorial waters is different. Territorial waters are 12 nautical miles or 22 kilometers from the coast as per the UNCLOS. So that is exclusively your own territory, as if, you know, you have absolute unhindered right as if it is your own territory. And if anybody has to enter there, they have to ask you. They can't enter without your permission. And then there is exclusive economic zone. Now, this is also highlighted as per UNCLOS, and this extends from the baseline to a maximum of 200 nautical miles, 370 kilometers. One nautical mile is roughly 1.8 kilometers. So it's more than normal mile. And 200 nautical miles is 230 normal miles of the land. So 370 kilometers is from the coastal baseline is your exclusive economic zone. Of course, nearby there is another country like what China has done in South China Sea. They have said no, no matter Taiwan is close to us, Philippines is close to us, is within 200 nautical miles, and let's say Malaysia, Vietnam, they have gone ahead and suo moto, without asking, consulting anyone, drawn up a 9 dots line. And they are claiming that this is 9 dots, this is all our territory. We don't recognize Philippines to EEZ, we don't recognize Vietnam, and so on. So these conflict areas have to be resolved by going to UNO. So this is a challenge, namely the concept of sea. When you talk about this underwater aspect, there is a territorial waters aspect, there is exclusive economic zone aspect. Now I have to tell you that now let's come specifically to the maritime threat or maritime strategic security dimensions within the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean has emerged as a critical conduit for trade, commerce, and energy. The waters of the Indian Ocean region have become a home for economic developments, disputes, conflicts, and competition for regional influence by regional and extra-regional powers. All major powers such as USA, Australia, Japan, United Kingdom, India, and China have sought stakes in the security of the IOR, Indian Ocean region. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union wanted direct access to the IOR. But today, China is looking for the same. Indian Ocean remains a pivot, being the world's busiest trade route. Around 80% of the world's maritime oil trade passes through IOR. Why? Because China and Japan, China may have their own oil reserves also. Japan doesn't have any. So they have to get oil from Persian Gulf. And China is a major consumer of oil. America has found its own oil. So a lot of oil passes through Indian Ocean region. So security of oil, this aspect is very important for countries bordering IOR or the security dimension. Why? There will be conflicts in the sense that when their ships are passing, oil carriers are passing through Indian Ocean region, there are potential conflicts of piracy, of rights of sea, right of way, and so on. And then there are choke points. The rise of China across the maritime region has compelled many nations, including India, to reshape their maritime strategies. The Indian Ocean lies at the crossroads of Africa on the west, Asia, and Australia. And it houses a number of littorals, many coastal countries that play critical roles in the region. On this, I must share with you, there is a body called IORA, Indian Ocean Region Association. It is headquartered in Mauritius, south of Indian Ocean. and they are taking decisions on collaboration, formulating protocols for uh, collaborative use, rule-based exploitation of the IOR resources, as well as sea lines of communication, SLOC, sea lines of communication. So the choke points in IOR are Strait of Hormuz, which is in the western region, western part of uh, Indian Ocean, Strait of Malacca. I'll repeat this, you must have lost my audio. The IOR has choke points such as Strait of Hormuz, Strait of Malacca, and Bab el Mandeb. Strait of Hormuz and Bab el Mandeb are in the west, this side of Saudi Arabia and other side of Saudi Arabia, and Malacca is well known between Indonesia and Singapore. These choke points are of immense strategic importance as a lot of volume of trade passes through them, and there are narrow passages of sea, so they are very vulnerable. For example, even if a ship sinks there, the the trade route is blocked. It's like a tanker on the narrow road. If it gets jammed, tire gets flat, the road is blocked. It's very crucial. But these choke points are of immense strategic importance, and they are exposed to piracy, international disputes, political dissents, and accidents. To ward off such threats and to gain or maintain a strong foothold, control in this resource-rich region, regional and external powers flex their muscles. Well, till today, for many years, America has been the unchallenged power of the world. Russia has gone back, and now China is emerging to challenge American predominance in the world in every part of the world, whether it is Pacific Ocean and whether it's in European landmass or in Indian Ocean. The islands in the Indian Ocean also work significantly to shape security architecture of the Indian Ocean region. These islands play a vital role along the sea lines of communication by giving access to Navy's continued presence and allowing them to patrol and secure sea lines of communication during the time of peace and war. For example, America has a base in south of Indian Ocean, a base called naval base called military base called Diego Garcia. Through that, even there was a talk of now, of course, Trump is moving out, a new administration is coming in to teach a lesson to China to attack, take possible launch a possible attack on China. The USA was going to operate nuclear bombers from Diego Garcia, which is on the eastern, southern, southeast part of Indian Ocean, and otherwise from Guam. So Guam to China and from Diego Garcia to China. That didn't happen, but I'm just saying how important these bases are. And now the challenges are, for example, now, today, China, you know that to satiate its appetite for a lot of minerals, China is taking a lot of minerals, cobalt, zinc, energy resources from Africa. You know that Africa is a continent which is unexplored, very rich. It's like a new colonization. China has entered every country in Africa almost, in every country almost in Africa, by giving them a debt loan on easy terms. They look easy in the beginning, but they're very tough to fulfill. And then the idea is Chinese go there, give them loans to build their roads, to build their ports, build their airports, develop their mining, develop railway, and thereafter they stay there. And those countries can't pay back. When they can't pay back, they start taking cheap oil, minerals from those countries. So imagine Africa to China. 85% of the material of China has to come from Africa and passes through Indian Ocean. Big problem. Next, China has a huge trade with every country in the world. With EU, with European Union, China has a trade of 560 billion US dollars per year. And you know, there's so much of trade, again, it is to pass through Indian Ocean. So this is very critical for China. So this is a new development. And the way America has allowed China to come up 30, 40 years back, they've allowed China to come up, during Nixon's time, during Kissinger's time. Pakistan helped America to reach out to China, to help China grow. Why they should grow? To counterbalance USSR. That time, USSR. To counterbalance, they were supporting China. But now, China has become very too big even for them as an economic power also and as a emerging military power also. Today, Chinese Navy is more larger in number, more number of warships, even more than China, USA. Of course, if you compare technology, USA Navy has an edge. If you know the USA experience of operating the Navy, skillful operation, management of Navy is very important, apart from having merely the machines and the warships. So China may be lagging behind, but they're catching very fast. And next thing, China has a problem. They are operating in Indian Ocean. If they have to exercise control, what happens? They are far away from the land, they're shore. Now, for them to operate in Indian Ocean, unless they have a two, three, four aircraft carriers, don't have air cover. If they don't have air cover, then they are vulnerable, let's say, from threat from the Indian naval warships, even American warships. USA is now planning to have a numbered fleet, seventh fleet, third fleet, based out of Singapore. This was announced by Trump. Of course, he's going out now. One doesn't know what will be the policy of the new administration. So to have a huge presence in Singapore, who will do it? USA. In a big checkmate to China. Yes, but the problem is air cover, they don't have much because they don't have very functional aircraft carriers. But they have many submarines. Now, submarine is a big threat, which I was telling you earlier. When you talk about marine domain awareness, you have to talk about underwater domain awareness. The world under the water is very deadly. It's like a guerrilla warfare of Shivaji. You just don't know what is there. You just don't know what will happen. It's very difficult to track submarines because of the physics of water, because of hydrography, because it's very difficult to track submarines. So that with that submarines, so they again are able to, and nuclear SLBM, submarine strategic missile, ballistic missiles, they are able to have exercise control, muscle their control in the Indian Ocean also in coming years. Because India is still not able to put its act together to such an extent, only for one reason, smaller economic power. We are around 2.5, $3 trillion economy, and China is 15 trillion, 5 times. You see, and per capita, and if you take in PPP terms, China is bigger than USA also. PPP, as you know, is purchasing power parity terms. So these are the challenges that there's a competition in the Indian Ocean region because Asia is an emerging region of the world. So it's a scene of action for the world. Other Europe, USA, there's stable systems, stable economies. So the need for this is the importance of the Indian Ocean region and the little countries. The reason, so there's a need to establish good rule-based operation. If this is my boundary, like a piece of land we have, like say I have a farm, you have a farm. There should be clear-cut rules. This is your land, this is my land. If this happens, you will call me. You does not take a suo moto action and not change things on the ground. Like we have seen the problem in LAC. LAC, line of actual control, that is a border between India and China, is not well defined. Because it is not well defined, they say that they just move in. Like in April 2020, Chinese forces moved in, and then they said, no, 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 there is a confusion. We didn't know. This is our territory. We'll say it's our territory. So it's very important for stability, for peace, for shared prosperity to have a rule-based approach. But of course, if one power doesn't want rule-based approach because they want to keep things free, because they are militarily more powerful, and in this case, it is China emerging as a big threat to the whole. So Indian degree. So, and one more thing which is happening globally in security concept, security perspective, if you take the Persian Gulf, if you see the dependence of oil generally for the humanity in the world on earth is reducing, and it is expected that in 30 electric vehicles, alternative means of energy, so bioenergies, in 30 years, 40 years, the Persian Gulf may not have its importance so much as it has been enjoying for many, many years. Economic prosperity also, and geo geopolitical importance also, geostrategic importance also, they may reduce. One more thing is happening in the Islamic world. The Gulf oil was all an Islamic world were co-terminus earlier. But there again you find there's a big conflict. The one grouping is, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other grouping is Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, something like Sunni and Shia. And because of conflict between them, Turkey, Erdogan wants to become, this is all part of Indian Ocean, wants to become the new Khalifa, new caliphate, and the boss of the Islamic world. So there's a tussle there, it's uncertainty. Of course, Israel, that Israel has already tied up with the UAE, a Jewish country, a traditional enemy. So things are changing in a very dramatic way. And but this is everything is happening in this region, only Asia and Indian Ocean region. So now, and another perspective which we all have been facing is the piracy. Even Indian Navy has been operating warships near Somalia, because Somali pirates are they make they are able to hinder the flow of merchant fleets, oil carriers from Persian Gulf to, let's say, India, or for the Chinese ships also. But look at the presence of Chinese and growth of the Chinese Navy, which I just told you a few minutes back, is today bigger in numbers, almost around 360 ships, warships, compared to US's around 280. And but they have got almost 45th or 43rd patrol, Chinese Navy patrolling and Gulf of Eden. To have their presence, where is China? Where is Gulf of Eden? And China has a naval base in Djibouti, and China is very strongly going ahead with its One Belt One Road, or Silk Road Initiative, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. In that, what they are doing, they say that they've also taken a port in Sri Lanka. They've given submarines to Bangladesh. They have been trying to support Myanmar, and they are trying to corner India. Well, India is in the center of Indian Ocean, and the name Indian Ocean also comes from India, as we can understand. They're trying to corner India through a strategy of string of pearls: Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Djibouti, this side. We've also made efforts, but I think the economic clout and which China enjoys, we have to really think of partnerships to handle China. Else, the challenge will be growing for us. Now, and over and above, China, in order to make its presence felt in Indian Ocean region, has been sending research ships. What do research ships do? They collect a lot of hydrographic data, the surface data, the depth data, the water gradient, the temperature gradient of the water going from surface to the bottom. Because these things define how easily, how quickly you can detect submarines. Because there's a concept of refraction, sound refraction. And underwater, you detect objects, you detect submarines by sonar. Sonar is sound operated. Sonar is acronym: sound operated navigation and ranging. In above surface, what you have? Radar, radio aided detection and ranging. So sonar works on underwater. It works on sound. The sound, because of the sea water, the 3,000 feet, 3,000 meters depth. So that in that depth, when you have, so the water is not a single contiguous body. It has got temperature gradient. It has got different density layers. So when you send a sonar wave at us in the submarine to detect submarine, you will find a shadow zone gets built. Why shadow zone? The sound will not doesn't travel straight because there are different layers of density, different layers of temperature, ray bends. So you know what? The submarine is lurking in the shadow zone. So detection of a submarine becomes a big problem. So Chinese warships have been found. They call them research ships. They've been found moving around trying to map, try to draw hydrographic map of the full Indian Ocean. They are not, that is not in our territorial waters. Of course, subtly by subterfuge, they may do it in territorial waters also. But the challenge is so big. See, India's exclusive economic zone is 2.3 million square kilometers, and India's land mass is 3.2 million square kilometers. So 70, two-thirds of the land mass is equal to exclusive economic zone. So if India is smart, quick, and clever, we can exploit this exclusive economic zone for oil, like Bombay High is oil of India, and it's offshore. And same way, lot of minerals, lot of fisheries, lot of food products, lot of plantation, all that. If we don't exercise control, then somebody else will. As they say, nature abhors a vacuum. Nature doesn't work in a vacuum. And geopolitical systems also don't work in a vacuum. If you are not controlling it, somebody will control you. Like they say, either you keep your boss busy or your boss will keep you busy. So keep feeding him a lot of data. It's okay. And if he's free, then he'll keep you busy. So this is something like that. Just to remember this point. Now, and everywhere in China, in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives. I visited Maldives last year in February. Yeah, exactly 12 months back. Now, we've been finding that I found that, see, Maldives is a string of islands, many islands. And so between one island and another island is the natural sea. So building a bridge over the sea to connect one island to other island. Well, India had gone into it. The project took many years. It could be completed. Chinese did it. So our project management, Indian project management, our systems, our collaboration, how well we can collaborate with the littoral countries. These are very important abilities, capabilities that we need to have. See, cultural affinity is fine, but being able to do work on the ground. Otherwise, whether it's African countries, you talk to any African nation, given a half a choice, they'll be willing to work with India rather than China. You know why? When Chinese company comes to build a road, let's say Zanzibar, what they will do? They will even bring Chinese labor, even electrician, even technician, unskilled workers, even Chinese. So if I am sitting in Zanzibar, I don't get a job because new development is taking place. But the ruler of the boss of Zanzibar or the ruler or the king or President whoever is there, is okay, fine. At least you are coming and doing development. Your terms you have, namely, you bring your own labor, your own manpower. So they are able to dictate terms because they have a lot of money and they have skills to implement projects very fast. Building ships at the rate of, imagine, the Chinese Navy has gone to such a large number. Why? Every 6 months they're producing a new destroyer. And they took just 3 years to build an aircraft carrier. Strong defense industry, all being done on their own, not by imports. In our case, we're importing a lot of hardware from outside. Importing is easy, but it's very costly. This is not a sustainable solution, long-term solution. So the question is, with the BRI, globally ambitious objective of China, Belt and Road Initiative of $1 trillion, CPEC is one part of that, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. CMEC, China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, is another part of that. So what is happening is that this is basically with a lot of money at the beck and call, China is going to, in a way, trying to reach out to control the world. And that's a big challenge emerging for India and even for USA. Because USA till now had an unquestioned predominance across the world, including in Indian Ocean. Now, We have assets. India has assets. Like we have about 567 islands in Bay of Bengal. We have Andaman and Nicobar Islands. You may know that the between Indonesia and India, there's only 70 kilometers of sea. For us, Indonesia looks maybe, oh, where it is, we don't know, baby. But just I worked in Indonesia for 2 3 years, and there's 200 kilometers, 70 kilometers is the difference between Indian island, Indian territory, and Indonesia. The point I'm making is that Andaman Nicobar Islands is a big asset for us. It's like we even if we had less airfields, we have many presence where we could convert them into outposts, military bases, and operate. So those assets are there, but question is question is Atmanirbhar Bharat for defense production. If that is not done, that is not sustainable. Like we are talking of UNO's SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Everywhere they will talk about whatever you do, can it be done for long term or no? Like Sustainable Development Goal means what? Support blue economy. Blue economy. What is blue economy? That use of sea should be equitable. Everybody can enjoy whether it is merchant fleet or exploitation of the resources, exploitation of seabed. So sustainability is the key. Doing one-off thing doesn't work. It's not going to last. It's transactional. It is not systemic. So now coming back to this issue of the Indian Ocean challenge for us, we have done our projects fine, and we are doing it, and we are making a lot of presence felt in Seychelles, in Mauritius, and with USA. We have signed. We are part of Quad. Why? Because there's trouble in South China Sea, and in South China Sea, Japan, Australia is troubled. So what is Quad? Quad has come up. We all heard of it. It's a big initiative. And in Quad, the USA, India, Japan, Australia. And Australia is part of Indian Ocean also. One side is Indian Ocean for Australia, other side is Pacific Ocean. So they are threatened by China also. So these four countries have come together to checkmate, to make sure that China allows right of navigation as per UNCLOS, UN Convention of Law of Seas, unfettered right to the South China Sea. Whereas China says this full 35, almost as much as the landmass of India, that is the South China Sea, full. And that they say 70% of that China says is ours. So, and one more thing China has done, whole world knows this. COVID-19 is a big, big game to really put the full world off balance. It's like the biological warfare. In the Navy, in the armed forces, we have NBCD. What is NBCD? Nuclear, biological, chemical defense, or nuclear, biological, chemical warfare. So this is well known. This is done. And then there is concept of cyber warfare. There's concept of spying and trying to reconnaissance and trying to, snoop on and get information warfare. So these things are not going to stop ever because there's a competition, there's a conflict, and due to various regions, and one of the major regions being that Asia is a very dynamic. Dynamic Asia means IOR, Indian Ocean region means dynamic situation. Why? Different political systems, different economic levels, huge population, lot of trade passing through that. So a lot of churn is there. This churn is all a cause for conflict. So this has to be handled. So these are the security challenges for IOR and significance of IOR and the challenges for us. I want to now tell you that some nice step which India has taken in this IOR concept. You see what? Like if you are living in a city, whether it's Bangalore or Baramati or Mumbai, I think you can imagine if the traffic on the road is well controlled through there are cameras everywhere and they are centrally coming to a particular place. There's an operations room. You can track what's happening. Then suppose something untoward happens. There's an accident somewhere. Some 50 cars or trucks on the highway, the Bombay-Pune highway, expressway. They've collided something. You know there's some problem. So what is that? Tracking of the merchant shipping over the Indian Ocean region, such a vast ocean. Tracking of that merchant fleet is called white shipping. Information about the merchant fleet. If it is done continuously, it's only surface. Surface means on top of sea, not underwater. So if this is done continuously, then this is step one for us. For us means for the countries of Indian Ocean region and India to know what is happening, who is moving where, what's happening. So I must share with you that there is a information fusion center, of Indian Ocean region created in Gurugram, part of NCR, National Capital Region of India, where data from all data points from the full Indian Ocean are gathered there. Data is analyzed and the data is digested and data is shared with the stakeholders. And in that, I must tell you, a lot of technology has come from USA. There's a liaison officer from US Navy sitting there also. So there's a collaboration between the stakeholders. It's a very good initiative taken by Indian Navy by opening this IFC IOR. IFC IOR, Information Fusion Center for the Indian Ocean region. And one more thing, one more initiative taken by our Prime Minister, Sagar, which is it's a framework. It is a Sagar, security and growth for all in the region. Now, this is a framework that first step to security is let's work on maximizing mutual benefit for all stakeholders. A. B. Let us try to solve the problems jointly. Three, let's try to lay down rules how things will work. So that is what Sagar Initiative is not a program, it's a framework of working security and growth for all in the region. So with this, I have finished my part of the presentation. Thank you very much. Since it is recording, if there are any questions on which I can answer, well, if they're emailed to me, I'll be able to take up answering those questions offline also. Thank you very much.